Okay, let's get into the second part, which is determining what is the opportunity cost of you not doing anything. Why is that important? Well, you wouldn't believe how many people, how many business owners we talk to where they swear that custom development is the way to go for their business. And then they get a shocked look on their face and feel completely defeated when they realize that custom software development costs at minimum $50,000, $60,000. On the upper end could be $250,000, or for some really enterprise stuff, closer to $500,000. But everything is going to be expensive if you don't understand what the underlying value is. In plainer terms, everything is expensive if you don't understand what it's paying you on the back end. Most business owners haven't done their due diligence to understand, well, what would be the payback period? Just like with any other asset or piece of equipment that you buy back, you want to ultimately know, if I buy this, $70,000 piece of equipment, when am I going to get my money back? Where's my break even? Where's my ROI? You have to do the same thing for software. So being able to do this and ultimately understanding what you can afford at the end of the day and knowing your options, it first starts with understanding what is happening. So it usually happens with three main things. And if you can think of other ways that there's inefficiencies, add them here. But usually it's things like manual entry, workarounds, or report creation. This is essentially stuff that you should not be doing, but because of your system, it's creating inefficiencies that you're having to spend extra time doing manual data, you and or your team. And so let's list the tasks. So these are very conservative numbers. I imagine yours will look a little bit bigger, but let's break it down first. Manual entry. I spend time doing manual entry. Again, taking things from a piece of paper, putting them into a piece of software. Then I have workarounds, right? So then I have to put it into this software. Then I take that data and put it into another software. Then I print this thing off, hand this to this person, and they put it into this software, right? That's what I mean by workarounds. And report creation. Again, I don't have any dashboards, so I have to pull tables from certain databases, export it, try to get it into a CSV, populate the data, clean up the data, right? So let's get into the first one, which is manual data entry. So let's say that your team members are doing 60 minutes per day, so an hour per day of manual data entry. Let's assume that, again, you have 250 business days in the year. And so because of that, you have wasted around 250 hours. Let's say your average employee, you pay $2,500 or $25 an hour. That would be $1,250 you're paying annually for someone just uploading data into a system. Now, again, this is pretty conservative. Most people that I'm working with when we're building custom software, their employees are spending 2 or 3 hours each per employee on manual data entry. So for some of our clients that are, around $1.5 million, maybe 2 or 3 million, and they have 6, 8 employees who are touching this system, we're talking about $15,000, $25,000, $30,000 in annual costs just in manual entry, wasting their time. Then additionally, workarounds, right? The workarounds we mentioned, where we have to put things from here to there, print this thing off, move this thing over here. That might be an additional 45 minutes per day. Again, 250 days per year equates to annual hours wasted at 187.5. Again, at $25 an hour for that employee, that's a little under $5,000. And let's say that, my CFO or my COO does some report creation. They only do that once every 5 days. They do it on Friday. So instead of 250 days per year, they do it around 50 days per year at about 30 minutes per day when they have to do it. That's 25 hours wasted, but it's my CFO, my controller. I pay him $50 an hour. So I'm spending a little over $1,250 just on creating reports. So this gives me an annualized cost of, this is how much my system is costing me. A little over 12 grand in just manual entry and workarounds and report creation. That is payroll. That is payroll that I'm paying to my employees to do something that could be completely automated. It doesn't just stop there though, because you have to understand there's also a revenue impact for this, especially if you're direct to consumer or you're B2C and you interact directly with a customer, or maybe there's some piece of technology that your customers can order stuff online through you. If there's any kind of bad interference or friction within your checkout process, that can equate to something like a 5% abandon rate due to poor experience. That's pretty conservative. If you have a bad website at a bad checkout spot, or maybe your members or your customers are on one platform and then it has to move over to this platform and they do all these different things just to get the thing they're asking for. If they have a poor experience, let's say you charge your customers $1,000 for their widget or thing, then if you have 200 customers per year and an average abandon rate of 5% due to poor experience, then that's costing you 10 grand annually in lost revenue. Again, these are small numbers, just really basic information. But if you're a 7-figure organization, this is going to be a lot more, and these are going to be real serious numbers and tangible results. Another point here on revenue impact is that one of our customers, they're going to see 3 to 6% jump in revenue automatically because they're a membership organization. And right now, all they can do is process paper checks and things over the phone. They have no way for their members to manage things within their own portal. And they also don't have them on auto renew, so that we recognize, okay, this might seem a little silly to somebody. Okay, 5% on poor experience, but this is a real conservative figure where one of our clients, they're going to see, a 3 to, on the upper ends, maybe even 10% automatic jump in revenue by just being able to have members self-serve their payment and to have auto pay regularly occur on the same credit card. So that's huge. If you're not someone who works directly with a customer, you can move that to the side on the revenue impact. But let's dig into the missed opportunity cost, because there's something I want to zoom in on here on the calculations here at the top. Because what we have to understand is that this is double expensive, bad software. What do I mean by that? Well, you have to pay for this twice. You have to pay for it when you actually pay the payroll, right? So you're literally paying these employees to do these specific tasks that could be automated. Then it's secondarily expensive because there's also a missed opportunity cost. And what does that look like? Well, what if we took our business admin, our marketing person or whoever, and instead of them doing manual entry and workarounds and stuff for our customer that could be automated in a system, what if we instead could repurpose all that time back into growing the business, meaning revenue generating opportunities, right? And what is that? Marketing and sales at the end of the day. So we know at the end of the day, if we calculated all this together, it's 462.5 hours that this person my employees could be using on revenue generating opportunities. Let's say my average customer value is $1,000, and that when they spend 10 hours on prospecting, they close one deal. So I know that the value of the growth activities per hour is $100. If these are salespeople that we're doing these figures for, you should have that number pretty well figured out on how much you're paying them and how much they actually pay you at the end of the day on a per hour basis. So you should be able to do these figures. But again, I showed you here what that looked like. Let's again say my average order is $1,000. I know that if they spend 10 hours, new deals, they can close one deal. And so that's going to be an opportunity cost of $100. So if that's 462.5 hours times $100 of revenue generating opportunity, that's potentially a little under $50,000 of opportunity cost, meaning deals that aren't happening because my customers aren't being served, they aren't being upsold, or I'm not finding new customers at the end of the day. So if we take the total annual cost and we take the revenue impact and then we take the opportunity cost, then conservatively, I'm looking at $68,000, $437.50 in total opportunity cost, meaning that if I stay with my system, this is how much it is costing me per year in growth and in payroll. So you might say, well, 68 grand, that's not too bad for, a 7-figure business. But what you have to understand is this is really where business owners get this wrong. is because you have to view this from a 10, 15, or maybe even 20-year perspective. Because if you get a bill for 200 grand for custom software development and you go, well, my problem is only $68,000. That's not it at all. It's actually annualized over multiple years of opportunity cost. Because what we have to understand is, software as a business owner doesn't seem that expensive when you're paying, $500 a month. But if you think about paying $500 a month for the next 20 years, that becomes a really expensive piece of software. But if you have a $200,000 piece of software that you pay for one time, but it lasts you 20 years, then that's, 10 grand a year, right? So in theory, custom software can be more affordable because you are paying for it one time. You're building it for exactly how it needs. And oftentimes this software and well-architectured software for your business can last you, 15 or 20 years without any really major improvements, just minor improvements or additions or things that you need as your business begins to grow. So let's say conservatively that instead of a 15 or 20 year cycle, though that is reasonable for business software, let's just say over a 10-year cycle. That's costing you in total, so 68,000 times 10 grand is $684,375,000 total cost if you did nothing else and just did business at the same. So in that new perspective, seeing it as a long-term perspective, that allows you to see what is affordable and what's not, and what is your break-even point at the end of the day, right? This is the hardest thing for, I think, business owners to conceptualize at times, because you guys are used to doing this for equipment. If you're, a resort or something like that, you're used to doing it for building a cabin. But when it becomes so intangible, like something like software, yet it so tangibly touches your business, it becomes hard to articulate, well, that seems really expensive or just a bunch of code, right? But you have to understand that this is, if you were to pay somebody to then build an addition onto your house, and it's going to take 6 months or 9 months to do, I mean, would it be unreasonable to think that that would cost 6 figures? You go, yeah, I guess I'd understand. If I had to hire a contractor for 6 to 8 months with a big remodel that's going to take that long, yeah, that's pretty reasonable. That's the same here. But instead of it just being, an asset, a piece of equipment that ultimately will depreciate, this can become revenue generating for you. This could help streamline your business, help you, allow you to be able to, train and bring in more employees to grow quicker. So when we think about it over a course of 10 years, which is conservative, the cost at $200,000, let's say on the more expensive side, becomes a lot less expensive, considering that total opportunity cost is almost $700,000. That means that if we pay 200 grand in year one for a piece of custom software, that we're going to see, a break-even point in, 3.5 years? So within 3.5, 4 years. And for most of our clients in the math that we do, that's about right. Around 2.5 to 3.5 years is usually when you'll see the break-even point when you're building something fully custom. Now, also a quick note here for anyone who's wondering about how does this affect your taxes, please do talk to a CPA about this. But what we've heard is that you can take the entire deduction for that piece of software that you build within year one under section 179 of the tax code. So that means that if you pay 200 grand for a piece of software that's being built in 2025, you can have that full amount deducted from your taxes under section 179. Again, talk to your CPA, but that's something good to know if you're towards the end of the year and you actually do need to spend money anyways. It might be a good time to go ahead and take care of that software. So again, we talked about how do we look at what you can afford by breaking down what the opportunity cost is of what your current software is costing you, and then being able to kind of annualize that over the period of the length of the software for you to understand not only what your opportunity cost is, but what you can afford, and ultimately what is your break-even point.